Axel's eyes snapped open. A gasp escaped his lips. Darkness enveloped him, thick and suffocating. Had it all been a dream? The fall, the terror, the echoing void? He sat up, his hand instinctively reaching out, searching for Arya. His heart pounded against his ribs, empty. The space beside him was cold.
The void whispered around him, a haunting reminder of his isolation.
Axel stumbled through the oppressive darkness, his fear growing with every step. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. He called out for Arya, his voice swallowed by the void. Desperation gnawed at him.
Where is she? Why can't I find her? The darkness, it's consuming everything.
His mind raced, a canvas of chaos painted with fear and uncertainty.
Arya wandered through the serene landscape, her heart heavy with unspoken worries. The meadow stretched out before her, a sea of vibrant colors and delicate petals swaying gently in the breeze. Each step she took seemed to echo in the stillness, a reminder of the solitude she felt deep within. Her bare feet sinking into the soft grass, she felt a fleeting connection to the earth beneath her. The sensation was grounding, a small comfort in the midst of her turmoil. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath, trying to absorb the tranquility of her surroundings. The beauty around her was breathtaking, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her mind. The clear blue sky above seemed to mock her inner chaos, its vastness a reminder of how small and insignificant her troubles were in the grand scheme of things. Yet the beauty of the meadow offered a brief respite, a momentary escape from her worries. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to her, like a shadow that refused to be cast away. The ominous cloud in the distance mirrored her inner turmoil, a dark presence that loomed over her thoughts. She felt a chill run down her spine, a reminder that not all was well in her world. She called out for Axel, her voice echoing through the stillness, unanswered. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying her sense of isolation. She cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted again, desperation creeping into her voice. "Axel, where are you?" she cried, her words swallowed by the vast emptiness around her.
"Axel, where are you? Please, answer me." Her plea was met with silence, the forest around her remaining eerily still. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision as she scanned the horizon for any sign of him. The weight of her worry pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe.
A figure materialized in the distance, bathed in golden light. It was as if the very air around it shimmered with a soft, ethereal glow. Arya squinted, trying to make out the features of the approaching figure, her heart pounding in her chest. It approached her, its features blurry, indistinct. The closer it got, the more Arya felt a strange mix of fear and hope. She took a tentative step forward, her breath catching in her throat. Who or what was this being that seemed to emerge from the very fabric of the meadow? A sense of calm washed over Arya, a stark contrast to the anxiety that had gripped her moments before. The presence of the figure seemed to soothe her, its aura radiating a peaceful energy that enveloped her like a warm embrace. This being, whatever it was, meant her no harm. Arya felt an inexplicable trust towards it, as if it were a guardian sent to guide her through her darkest moments. She closed her eyes, allowing the calm to seep into her very soul.
He is lost, lost in the darkness that consumes him. Axel's face flashed in her mind, his eyes filled with confusion and fear. She knew he was out there, somewhere, struggling against the shadows that threatened to engulf him. The thought of him alone and afraid tore at her heart.
The melodic hum of the entity's voice lingered, a soothing balm to her troubled mind. It spoke not in words, but in feelings, conveying a sense of hope and reassurance. Arya felt a renewed determination to find Axel, to bring him back from the brink of despair. A solemn truth in the sanctuary of her mind. She realized that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was not alone. The sanctuary within her, the calm bestowed by the mysterious figure, would be her guiding light. With a deep breath, Arya opened her eyes, ready to face whatever lay ahead.
Axel fell to his knees, his hands covering his ears, desperate to block out the screams. The darkness around him seemed to pulse with the intensity of his despair, each scream reverberating through the emptiness, amplifying his agony. He could feel the weight of the void pressing down on him, suffocating him, making it hard to breathe. Every breath he took was a struggle, every heartbeat a reminder of his isolation. But they pierced through his defenses, burrowing into his mind, driving him to the brink of madness. The tendrils of darkness seemed to have a life of their own, writhing and twisting as they invaded his thoughts, corrupting his memories and turning his own mind against him. He could see flashes of his past, distorted and twisted as if the darkness was feeding on his fears and regrets. The more he tried to fight it, the deeper it seemed to dig, leaving him feeling helpless and lost. He was trapped, alone in this abyss of suffering. The vast, dark landscape stretched out endlessly before him, a desolate wasteland devoid of any hope or solace. The shadowy figures that lurked in the corners of his vision seemed to mock him, their presence a constant reminder of his isolation. He wandered through the emptiness, searching for a way out, but every path he took seemed to lead him deeper into the void. The silence was deafening, broken only by the echoes of his own torment.
The abyss echoed with his torment, a relentless assault on his sanity. Each step he took seemed to trigger a new wave of anguish, the echoes of his footsteps mingling with the whispers of the shadows. The swirling darkness seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with its oppressive presence. The ominous clouds that gathered overhead seemed to mirror his inner turmoil, a storm of despair that threatened to consume him entirely. He could feel his grip on reality slipping, the line between his nightmares and the real world blurring.
Then, a voice cut through the cacophony. Arya's voice, faint, distant, but undeniably hers. It was like a lifeline in the darkness, a beacon of hope that pierced through the fog of his despair. He could barely make out the words, but the sound of her voice was enough to give him a glimmer of hope. He strained to hear her, to make out the message she was trying to convey. The silhouette of her figure in the mist seemed to beckon him, urging him to keep going, to not give up. Hope flickered in his chest. He wasn't alone. He just had to reach her. But how? The path to her seemed fraught with danger, the darkness around him teeming with unseen threats. He could feel the weight of his fear pressing down on him, but the thought of Arya gave him the strength to keep going. He reached out, his hand trembling as he tried to grasp the faint glimmer of hope that her voice had ignited. His eyes, once filled with despair, now burned with determination. He would find a way to reach her, no matter the cost.
In the emptiness, a spark of hope ignited, a beacon in the darkness. The flickering candlelight seemed to symbolize the fragile hope that had taken root in his heart. It was a small, fragile thing, but it was enough to guide him through the darkness. The lighthouse in the stormy sea stood as a testament to his resolve, a reminder that even in the darkest of times there was always a way forward. The distant light in the dark forest beckoned him, urging him to keep moving, to not give up. And so, with renewed determination, Axel set out on his journey, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.
What darkness? Tell me how to find him. Please, I need to get to him.
The path is not yours to choose.
Arya's heart sank. Was she powerless to save him? No, she refused to believe that. She had to find a way. Suddenly the air around her shimmered, a tear in the fabric of this world. And through it, she saw him, Axel. Axel ran towards the sound of Arya's voice, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and terror. The darkness around him seemed to claw at him, trying to drag him back into its depths.
Panting.
He stumbled and fell, his hands scraping against the rough ground. Looking back, he saw them, the tortured souls, their faces twisted in eternal agony, reaching for him with clawed hands. He scrambled to his feet and continued running, the screams echoing behind him.
Axel! Arya cried out, her hand reaching towards the shimmering portal. She saw the terror in his eyes, the despair that threatened to consume him. Hold on! I'm coming! But her words were lost in the void between them. The being stepped closer, its form now solidifying, revealing an elderly woman with kind eyes.
This is not your world, child. He is trapped, his soul tethered to the darkness. You cannot save him.
Arya! He scrambled to his feet, his heart soaring. He was no longer alone. He had found her.
Axel? Arya turned, her eyes widening in disbelief. Relief washed over her, so powerful it threatened to bring her to her knees. He was real, he was here. But as she took in his surroundings, her blood ran cold. Gone was the peaceful meadow. Gone was the gentle light. Axel stood in the same desolate landscape she had just escaped, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread. He had crossed over, but at what cost?
He is tethered to the darkness. The shadows cling to him like a second skin, a constant reminder of the abyss he carries within. Every step he takes is heavy, burdened by the weight of his past and the darkness that refuses to let him go. Axel was free from his personal abyss, but he had brought it with him, infecting her sanctuary. The once serene place, filled with light and hope, now felt cold and foreboding. The darkness seeped into every corner, tainting the air with a sense of dread and despair. She had a choice to make: run back through the closing portal to safety, to the life she once knew, or stay and face the encroaching darkness with him. The portal represented a chance to escape, to leave behind the shadows and the pain, but it also meant abandoning Axel to his fate, or stay and face the encroaching darkness with him. To stand by his side, to fight the abyss together, even if it meant risking everything. The darkness was relentless, but so was their bond. Together they could find a way to push back the shadows, to reclaim the light that once filled their lives.
Arya. Her name echoed through the darkness, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. The fear in her eyes was palpable, but so was the determination. She was not just a victim of the darkness, she was a warrior, ready to fight for the light. Axel cried out, his voice hoarse with desperation. He could see the fear in her eyes, but he also saw the strength that lay beneath. He knew that together, they could face anything, even the abyss that threatened to consume them. He took a step toward her, his hand outstretched, his eyes filled with a love that transcended the abyss between them. The void seemed insurmountable, but their connection was stronger. It was a love that had weathered storms, faced countless trials, and now stood against the ultimate darkness. And in that moment, Arya knew there was no choice at all. She would not abandon him to the darkness. Together, they would face the abyss, and together, they would find their way back to the light. The journey would be perilous, but their love would be their guide, their strength, and their salvation.